Now, you all know that normally I like to have fun on this show, as much fun as I am constitutionally capable of having anyway, which isn't much, so never mind. The point is that today I have to get very serious and even a little emotional, perhaps. You probably remember that I began this week in a state of elation, deeply proud of the fact that my children's book, Johnny the Walrus, about a boy who identifies as a walrus, had not only become one of the top 5 best-selling books on Amazon, but it also made it onto Amazon's LGBT book list, where it was number 1. My Walrus novel had only been on sale for a few days, but already it was the most popular piece of LGBT literature in the world, topping the list and beating out such LGBT titles as Filthy Bromance and Holiday and Daddy's Little Christmas. These are all real titles, by the way. It even bested the classic Sexted by Santa, Thrust into Love, Book 4. They probably should have stuck with Sexted by Santa trilogy. You know, the narrative really lost its momentum in the 4th installment, some critics are reporting anyway. Kind of a naked cash grab in more ways than one, you might say. But in any case, I had suddenly become the most prominent, influential, celebrated, and revered LGBT voice in the world, and possibly in all of history. I didn't expect to be put in that position, but I was ready to fulfill the responsibilities of that office faithfully. I had big plans for the LGBT movement, of which I was now the sole and unquestioned leader. Yes, it's true that I am heterosexual, but there's no reason why that should exclude me from holding this title. I am a straight LGBT author and leader and walrus awareness advocate. These are all parts of my complex and intersectional identity. I am an enigma, even to myself. My identity is a vast mosaic of different elements and pieces, all adding up to one beautiful yet complicated whole. And from these mysterious depths sprang forth the work of tortured genius, known as Johnny the Walrus. Does all this sound extremely narcissistic and nonsensical? Perhaps. But that only again proves why I deserve to be the voice of the LGBT movement, which is what I am. Yet in an act of mutiny and treason, my fellow LGBT activists turned on me. They complained bitterly about the fact that my book was on the LGBT charts. They were envious. Indeed, they didn't want it on any charts at all. I reported yesterday that Media Matters had published a hit piece accusing me of transphobia and other assorted thought crimes. GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, aligned itself with my defamers, calling on Amazon to remove the book from the LGBT category. Other activists chimed in, some of them tagging Jeff Bezos, calling on Amazon's founder to address the matter personally. In the greatest act of betrayal, my favorite website, the gay news site Pink News, published an article with this title: Right-wing pundit gloats as Amazon lists hateful transphobic book as LGBT plus bestseller. And the article explains, Amazon has listed a hateful transphobic children's book by the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh as its #1 best-selling LGBT book. Walsh, a right-wing writer who has compared gender-affirming healthcare to experimentation, molestation, abuse, and rape, recently announced that he has written a horrific anti-trans children's book, Johnny the Walrus, set to be published in March. The book began taking pre-orders this month on Amazon, which has inexplicably classed it as an LGBT book. In a review, the right-wing publication The Blaze said, Matt Walsh's work is an effort to push back against radical gender ideology, which defies biological reality. But if anything says ideology, surely it's a book that tells children that expressing their gender means being forced to eat worms and having their feet cut off. Johnny the Walrus, supposedly aimed at 3 to 5-year-olds, tells the story of a little boy who pretends to be a walrus. Johnny's mother is pressured by the internet to tell her child that he is a walrus, and protesters are shown with signs claiming human walruses are real walruses. The most twisted attack on trans kids is when Johnny's mom takes him to the doctor, who tells him he must only eat worms, constantly wear itchy gray makeup, and have his feet cut into fins. Well, I just opened my Christmas present, which is a set of Kamikoto knives. And look, these knives, they tap into more than 800 years of traditional techniques from Honshu, Japan. Each Kamikoto knife goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Because of their single bevel edge, Kamikoto knives can achieve an unbelievably sharp edge, and they can cut through your ribeye like butter. They can cut through anything or anyone. I'm just kidding. Don't cut people. Kamikoto knives are used by several chefs working at a Michelin star restaurant. And when you get these knives, you can tell why. So click the link below or go to kamikoto.com/Matt Walsh and use promo code Matt Walsh to save an extra $50 today. Now, for the record, If that part of the story is an attack on anyone, it would be an attack on people who mutilate kids, not on the kids themselves, obviously. This is like if you're punching somebody in the face and I tell you to stop and you accuse me of attacking the person that you were punching. So you're the attacker in that situation. I am the intervener in the attack. That's how that relationship works. But anyway, the greater point here is that the very people who ought to have been coming to my aid and defending me as a straight gay icon were instead focused on marginalizing me. And their campaign of hate and bigotry, I am sad to report, has worked. This morning, I awoke to discover that Johnny the Walrus, the most courageous piece of LGBT literature ever written, has been removed from Amazon's LGBT bestseller list. They took it off. No explanation. They didn't ask me. I didn't consent. And it's not just that there had been a surge in Sexted by Santa sales supplanting my book as number one. If that were the case, I would tip my cap to the Sexting Santa and accept defeat. But that's not what happened. I was removed from the category entirely. I have been literally erased. I've been targeted for violence, not literal violence, but literary violence. Jussie Smollett was not the victim of an anti-gay hate crime, but I am. I'm also a better fiction writer, incidentally. This is an attack not just on me, but on the whole LGBT community and on the Walrus community. I feel, I have to say, deeply afraid now, unsafe. I mean, if I cannot be safe and secure on the Amazon LGBT list, then where can I turn? Where am I safe? I have represented and defended the LGBT community faithfully for these many hours. Who will defend me now? No one. I feel alone and cold and abandoned. But I have cried all the tears I can cry over this. I'm sure there'll be many tears in the future. I have been dehumanized, delegitimized, decertified, vaporized, but I'm not going to back down. I'm still going to stand up and be loud and proud and speak my truth. A truth which is grounded in my lived experience as an LGBT author and Walrus advocate. Amazon can't stop me. Nobody can. I'm not going to be canceled. Instead, to GLAAD and Pink News and Amazon and Media Matters, with all the strength I can muster as a best-selling LGBT author, a title I will retain forever, by the way, I say that you all are canceled. Shame on you. Shame on you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.